Chris, nice to speak to you again. I'm Ariana with Fresh Pair of Eyes. I talked to you at ATX TV Festival last year and then virtually for Hotel Cocaine. And now we're back for Godfather of Harlem.
We go again.
Here we are. So, Chance asked Bumpy if he always needs a fight. Do you think Bumpy always needs a fight?
A great question. I would be tempted to say no, given that Bumpy likes to, I think, avoid a fight. But then again, when I think about the show, I guess he's in a lot of fights with people. So so I think maybe he does need a fight. And by the way, if it's not a professional fight with a chin or another gangster, then it might even be within his own family.
I do think Chance says later that like you don't always have to hop off buildings to prove that you're fearless. I think Bumpy does for himself needs to prove that he's fearless. There's something in him that he needs to prove that he can do this.
Yes, yes. I think that is accurate. And Forrest embodies that.
Yes. So all the families are mad at Bumpy for not sharing in his dream. Um, do you think it's because he's not sharing, or is it to them the audacity of a black man thinking he can just do everything on his own?
I think there's a lot of inherent racism in the attitude of the mafia families. And at the same time, it's also for them perhaps less about black and white than about green. So they feel like he's landed on something, meaning this kind of making Harlem, Los Harlem,
Mhm.
gambling and other vices. And so I think that they want their piece. I mean, that's what the mob does. And so I tend to think perhaps it's less racially motivated than it is financially.
Yes, it's always like, well, why aren't you paying the tax of existing? I can see that. Um, so we have the introduction of Frank Lucas. How would you say that Frank and Bumpy and are alike, and how are they different?
Well, certainly, Frank's fallen off a turnip truck. In other words, he's not schooled at all. And I think what we'll watch over the evolution of Bumpy and Frank's relationship is that Frank's growth of understanding of what it takes to be a don, a gangster par excellence. So I think they're very different at first, and I think Frank has less moral scruples than Bumpy. Bumpy's a little moralistic, more moralistic, and so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yes. What was it like to move away from Bumpy's drug business? That was such the core for 3 seasons, and now still have Malcolm X echoes throughout because it not haunts him, but we see it all throughout the season that it's because of Malcolm. I have to be a better man.
Well, it's a great question. I think it's very difficult to be a top gangster in Harlem if you don't have narcotics. So we decided to take that and use that as an obstacle for Bumpy. In other words, we're doing the inverse of what you'd see on most gangster shows. It's when have you seen a gangster show where the gangster says, "I don't want to be involved with narcotics at all." And I don't think I've seen that before. And obviously it has an endpoint, and we'll view how Bumpy deals with his attempt to build a narcotics free empire. Also,
Yeah. Yes, because there's so many chances for him to get back into the game. It's
true. It's true.
awesome. Well, it was great talking to you about this. I can't wait to talk about this again and Westies and everything.
Yes. Do
Awesome.
Westies next. Let's do our chat next about
Yeah.
West.
Awesome. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you.